Welcome to the Backseat Leadership Podcast, a leadership conversation for those not in the driver's seat of their organizations. You can learn by visiting www.backseatleader.com. And now, here are the hosts of the Backseat Leadership Podcast, Geoff Kokenauer and Brad Merchant.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Backseat Leadership Podcast. My name's Geoff Kokenauer. My buddy across the way is Brad Merchant. Brad Merchant. Yep. And this Backseat Leadership Podcast is the podcast for those who do not find themselves leading in the front seat, the driver's seat of the organization, which is a lot of people. A lot of people. And we talk about things that backseat leaders face on a regular basis. Questions, topics, concerns, issues, things that front seat leaders don't always have to address because they sit in the front seat, and things that are nuanced and specific to the backseat leader in organizations all across the world. Right, Brad?
Amen.
That's right. We're excited to jump back in today as we bring another episode, one focused on words, one focused on the way that we communicate with people, the people around us. And the fact is that words are incredibly powerful. Words can have lots of positive influence on people around us. They can have negative influence on people around us. They generally don't have no influence on people around us. And so we want to be wise about the words that we use. So Brad, take us in. How can we use our words wisely in the backseat?
Yeah, so studies say that the average person uses an average between 7,000 and 10,000 words a day. It's unbelievable. 7,000 to 10,000 words a day. So
how many do you think you use a day?
5.
5,000 or 5 words?
It depends on how I'm feeling.
I think you've already used more than 5 today.
Well, this is awkward.
Anyway.
So
people use a lot of words.
We're using a lot of words, 7 to 10,000 a day. And here's what we all know. We're all speaking. The question is, are we speaking well? And that's what we want to talk about in this episode, is how do you as a backseat leader who's using 7 to 10,000 words, probably more because you're in leadership, how can we use our words wisely? And I heard once a buddy of mine said that words are an MRI of the heart.
Wow.
In other words, if you want to know what's in your heart, look at what's coming out of your mouth. This is why one of the Puritans who I love that you love that I'm quoting them.
You love.
I love quoting the Puritans.
Yeah.
Thomas Watson said, words are the looking glass of the mind. In other words, if you want to see what's going on in your mind and heart inside of a person, look at their words, listen to them, and you'll be able to see kind of what's going on in this person's soul. And that's certainly true for us, is whatever we say is just a simple litmus test for actually what's going on internally. And so we want to talk about, okay, well, how can we maybe get to not just talking about how can we use better words, there's certainly a place for that, but actually how can we go a little bit deeper to get inside the backseat leader and give principles for helping us speak well and wisely. So what I want to do is walk through 4 principles for speaking well. 4 principles that are pretty simple to remember, but I think are really important for backseat leaders in particular who are using their words all the time, every week, and who want to speak well.
Can't wait, because we're 3 minutes into this podcast, and I already feel convicted about the things that are going on in my mind.
This is awesome.
That's going to be great. Take us in.
So principle number 1, here it is. Speak with a purpose. Speak with a purpose. Now, this might sound elementary or simple, and we might assume that this is true, but you know what I find, Geoff, in my own life? I tend to forget that I need to speak with a purpose. Don't talk just to hear yourself talk.
But that's a lot of fun. Not.
Yeah, no kidding. That's fun for everybody in the meeting who isn't named Brad or Geoff.
Right.
And we need to remember that.
Yeah.
That not just to talk, to let for me to hear myself talk, but additionally, we need to let every word we say actually serve and have a purpose. I love Paul David Tripp. He said that when we speak, it must be with the realization that God has given our words significance. He has ordained for them to be important. So God has given us the ability to speak so that when we speak, it actually serves a purpose. Now, what does this look like? Well, imagine you're in a meeting and someone gives an idea, a presentation. We've all certainly been in meetings like this. Someone has an idea for a project. Maybe it's a team. We're working on a project together, and someone has an idea for a shift we need to make. And they begin their presentation. 5 minutes go by, and they end. And then they ask the question we've all heard before, what do you guys think? What do you think? And now, what is it? Well, it's an open town hall meeting for whoever wants to take the invisible mic up to their mouth and begin to speak. They can do that. Everybody has the freedom to speak. And we get to hear a lot of words in those meetings, don't we? And what's interesting to me, and I've been guilty of this, surely, but I've heard people in meetings, when someone gives an idea, people respond only because they feel the need to say something. And what I'm finding is that whenever I just feel the need to say something, even though I don't have something valuable to contribute, the reason why I feel the need to just say something is because I want to put a mask on my insecurity. I want people to know that I have thoughts and I want to contribute and I want to have value and want to add value to this conversation. But because I'm so insecure about people, how they view me and what they're thinking of me, I just simply give us a little critique, something that doesn't even matter really. And I've heard people do that a lot, and I've certainly done that. And whenever you do that, you actually lose influence, because people begin to think this person's just throwing knick-knack critiques. They haven't really thought through what they're saying. They're not speaking with purpose. And that's the principle here. Is what I'm going to say actually going to serve a purpose? Or am I just talking to cover my own insecurity and to hear myself talk? It's a great question to ask.
Yeah,
yourself.
I think it's good. You identify how some of us are trying to be like, we just want to be able to say something. Some of us are just so uncomfortable with silence. Like, we're just,
it's true.
If someone offers this idea and then says, okay, what do you think? There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. There's some people in the room who are going, I'm just thinking about this. I really just want to think about it. And those people are probably the wisest people in the room, because they're not going to
process.
They're not going to offer anything up that's unpurposeful.
Yep.
Is that a word?
Yep.
We're gonna make it a word.
Yep, we'll make it a word.
And then there's some, like you said, who just want to say something so that it looks like they're saying something significant when maybe they're just going to talk around it.
Right.
And then there's others of us who just, the silence is deafening, and those are three situations where offering something may throw the person who's processing off. Offering something that's unpurposeful is just going to reveal that you haven't thought about this. And the third one is really, that person needs to become okay with not saying anything, so that they can actually process what they need to say.
It's true. Yep. Totally.
That's good. So speak with purpose.
Yes, that's
Use
the
our
first
words
principle.
with purpose.
Yep, and
That's
it's
good.
a great principle. To me, this is the foundation for all of the others
Sure.
I'm going to share. So the first principle for speaking well, speak with a purpose. Second principle, speak with caution. Speak with caution. Proverbs 29:20, there's a lot of proverbs that talk about this in the Bible, but Proverbs 29:20 is a great reminder for us. It says this: do you see someone who speaks in haste? In other words, do you see someone who is just quick to spew off, quick to give their opinion or their perspective? Do you see that person, the proverb asks? Here's what they say. They said, there is more hope for a fool than for them. Wow. Foolish people in the Bible are often articulated as those who are living in a continued state of unbelief or rebellion against God. And the idea here is that there is actually more hope for a fool than someone, so the person walking in unbelief or rebellion against God, there's more hope for them than the person who's just constantly spewing off their opinion, their perspective, and speaking their mind. In other words, here's the principle, Geoff. It's better to be quiet than to be foolish. It's better to be quiet than to be foolish. That old saying of, I forget how it goes, but I think it's attributed to Abraham Lincoln. Like every good quote, people just attribute it to him.
Sure.
I think the quote that I love that's attributed to him is, "I love Google," said Abraham Lincoln. But the old quote that goes something like this: it's better to be quiet and to remove any suspicion that you're a fool, than to finally speak and to remove all doubt, right? And that's what we're getting at here. It's better to be quiet than to be foolish. And Geoff, you know what I find with myself is when I'm not sitting back and I'm thinking, do I really need to say this? When I'm not asking myself that question internally, I end up saying things that are hurtful to people, and I'm having to do a lot of damage control. I remember an old saying from an older lady I met. This was years ago at a previous ministry setting I was serving in. She said, Brad, I'm a master of the words I don't say. and a slave to the words I do.
That's rich.
And what she was getting at is that you're a master of the words you don't say because I'm now the master of how they affect you, right? And if I'm not saying it, it's not affecting you. But when I do say something, I'm a slave to how that word is affecting Geoff Kokenauer or whoever else is in this meeting with me.
Yeah.
And the whole principle here is, listen, slow down, speak with caution. It's really important.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this through personalities, right? I'm thinking about it through, the person who isn't really foolish, but because they feel like they have to prove themselves. The person who's processing stuff and wants to be seen as a smart individual, or a person who has ideas.
Yep.
I'm thinking about the person who wants so desperately to have relationship with the people around them. So they want to speak into a situation, help fix it, help make it better. There's a whole slew of examples. I think of situations that I've been in where I've wanted to be able to offer something in an arena of thought that perhaps I'm not as skilled.
Yeah.
And I think if you would have asked me 5 years ago how often that would take place in my life, I'm not that smart. And there's not very many things that I have a lot of expertise in. I'm not a financial guy.
We are servants of all, master of none.
That's right. And so engaging with people who have lots of different disciplines than I do, expertise than I do. And honestly, there's a level of insecurity when you're having a conversation with someone and you don't have the answer.
Yeah.
And you don't have a response. You don't even have a coherent thought to the idea, but you're in this conversation with them. It's so much easier to go, I'm just going to offer something which is completely not there, when perhaps the precaution should be, well, that's cool, I just don't know.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like instead of offering something,
absolutely,
being more authentic and saying, that's awesome, or I have no idea, or something along those lines.
I've heard, I forget where I read it, but wherever I read it, this quote stuck out to me. He said, the scholar always has 3 words they use frequently. I don't know. The scholar. Mm-hmm. And that's because to be a scholar, definitionally, is meaning you have an area of expertise, which consequentially means I do not have an area of expertise in a lot of other areas, right?
Sure.
So I know this really well, but I don't know that really well.
Yeah.
And therefore, when we're talking about that,
yeah.
I know this, but I don't know that, I can say, I don't know. And that's a sign of humility.
This can be hard for backseat leaders because, if you're a person who's in the backseat, and we've talked about in previous episodes about driving towards the front seat, trying to get towards a seat that's closer to the front of the organization, or trying to prove that you are extremely valuable in the seat that you're in, and that the front seat leader needs to value you more. You can offer, there's temptation, there's opportunity to just open the mouth and start talking to try and prove yourself.
Want to prove yourself, want to move up.
Yeah. Yep. So I think backseat leaders especially have to really think through, and I think these 2 principles so far are really, really critical for being an effective backseat leader with the words that you use to build that influence and to utilize that influence in a positive way. So important. Speak with a purpose. Don't speak unintentionally. Speak with caution. Don't open your mouth and prove that you're a fool.
Yep.
What's number 3?
Yep. So the third principle is this: speak with charity.
It's an interesting word.
Speak with charity. In other words, it's just a fancy word for meaning this: be benevolent or kind whenever you speak. The backseat leaders that end up losing influence are those that whenever they speak, they are cynical and sharp. So they have a critique and they cut deep. It's like their words are like knives. They just pierce you. Yeah. They're usually the first to critique and the last to encourage. These are people who do not live by the principle of speak with charity. And Geoff, we should remember as backseat leaders that no matter who we are talking to, whether it be a front seat leader, another backseat leader, we should always speak with whoever is in front of us with charity and kindness. If what I'm about to say does not give grace to those who hear, I should not say it. Now, to be clear, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying don't ever speak against someone or something.
Sure.
No. That's not what I'm saying. But here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that it is possible, actually, to be convictional and kind. So these are actually, they're not cousins. They're actually siblings. Conviction and kindness actually go together. And Geoff, isn't it true that the people that we respect the most are people that do that really well? Mm-hmm. They speak the truth in such a way. It is so seasoned with grace. As one guy said, it's like when they give a critique, you're getting hit with a velvet hammer. And I love that. It's yes, you have the brick of truth, but it's covered by a pillow. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to be like as backseat leaders. And that's especially important when we are constantly being given opportunities by front seat leaders typically to critique ideas. Yeah. What we don't want to do is immediately take our shotgun of words and just go off. Mm-hmm. No. We want to be intentional in what we say. We want to speak with purpose, like we said. We want to speak with charity. These two go together, I think, is really important. So I'm speaking purposefully, but I'm also speaking with charity. I think these two, the first principle and the third principle, really go well together. But this is a really important one for us to understand.
And, I think you could take this nugget, this principle right here, and do about 3 episodes on this specific thing in the culture in which we're in. Yep. So, as of this recording, we're doing this in September of 2020, a year that has been defined by so many things.
Yep.
One that's becoming more and more prevalent in our culture, in our society, in our churches, in our church communities, those type of things, is division and vitriol.
Yep.
And one of the things that, I'm not going to make a position on anything mask-oriented or pandemic-oriented or anything like that. But what I find is that oftentimes people come at the discussion without considering the foundational principle of a Christian's life, which is every person on the face of the earth is made in the image of God.
Yep.
And there is a respect and a dignity that is attributed to that. I mean, this is why in the beginning of the United States, this experiment we call the United States of America, they said, we find these truths to be self-evident. Not that they were having to redefine what they were, but they have a creator who defined them in a certain way, and so we find these truths to be self-evident. In the same way for the Christian, it's even more obvious. You have lots and lots and lots of biblical teaching in the Old Testament and the New Testament where this is the given understanding of a human being. And oftentimes we come into discussions and we simply want to cut to the chase without recognizing the humanness, that's the human being that's standing or sitting in front of us. And we don't operate with that kind of, like you say, I like the word charity. I think that's a good word. And I would just encourage backseat leaders, and we're going to talk about this in other episodes about how to lead sideways and how to be good in that spot. How to lead when you're under the bus, when the backseat feels like it's under the bus. It can be often easy to use our words as daggers, as swords, as weapons, without recognizing that the person we're using those against is indeed a person. Oftentimes, I think we get to this place where we just want to prove our point. And that is so true in this day and age, that we just want to prove a point without valuing the person who's across from us.
Yep.
And so I would just, for the backseat leader who just needs to, honestly, it's a pausing, it's a valuing the person in front of you, and then it's talking that way. I love what Paul says in Colossians 3, or I'm sorry, is it 3 or 4? No, I don't know for off the top of my head. I think it's Colossians 3. No, it's Colossians 4. We're just going to say it's Colossians.
It's in there somewhere.
It's in there. He says, let your conversation be full of grace and seasoned with salt. It's almost to say that your approach, and obviously he's talking about conversations between believers and unbelievers, and without getting into a big theological discussion about, or an exegetical conversation here, it's an approach conversation. Paul's saying, look, the way that you approach a person, if you start with the salt, it may not taste so good. It may not go down so great. But if you start the conversation with grace and recognizing that there is a whole lot that could be here that you don't know about, and then bring in the salt. I love how Jesus talks about it when he says, like, take the log out of your own eye to take the sty out of your brother's. Like the idea that you got to recognize it's an authentic conversation. I am broken just as much as you are, but I want to help. That kind of thing. And I think it's really, really easy to not start with that, but we've got to start with a different perspective. Right. I love these three things. There's a fourth one in these principles that I think we've kind of talked around, but maybe we need to talk more directly. So the first one, speak with a purpose. Second one, speak with caution. Third one, speak with charity. Brad, what's number 4?
Yeah, so a little different here.
Hook here.
Here's the principle. Speak without speaking.
Ooh, curveball.
Speak without
Slider on the outside.
Yeah, that's right. Nobody watches baseball.
I watch baseball.
We watch the NBA playoffs.
Smart people watch baseball.
I'm not smart then.
That's okay.
So here's what we know, Geoff. Most communication has nothing to do with the words we use. Like, we know that. Most communication has nothing to do with the words we use, but our body language. When we're sitting, posturing, looking at someone, our mouth, our face, our eyes, all of these different things are actually huge factors in communicating. So here's what this means. It means that not only what I say needs to be, like we've already said, with purpose, with caution, with charity, but also the things I don't say. My body language needs to reflect those principles as well. Here are 3 questions I think that we could ask ourselves.
I like questions.
In the moment, just to be reflective on how am I speaking without speaking, and being purposeful, cautious, and charitable with those in front of me. Here are the questions. First, am I smiling? Am I smiling? Now, for some of us, this is easy, right? There's going to be some people listening to this episode, and man, you smile when you get up from the bed in the morning, and that is awesome. Other people, even on your birthday, it's hard for you to smile. And you know what? That doesn't make any of us less than one another. It's just how God made us, different personalities, as we were talking about earlier. But smiling communicates something to people around us. It communicates I'm not a grump, but I'm actually engaged in a conversation. I'm joyful. I'm happy. And there have been so many sociological and neurological studies shown that when we smile, we actually benefit. There's different chemicals that go off in our brains that we actually feel better. And that's actually true of others. When we see another person smile, we actually practice what is known in sociology as mirroring, where actually if I'm smiling, you know what you're probably going to be doing? You're probably going to be smiling. You're mirroring back what I'm doing. And when I'm not smiling, but I look grumpy, guess what you're going to be doing? It's going to be hard for you not to mirror what I'm doing. So that's a great question to ask yourself. Am I smiling? Secondly, am I engaged? Okay, am I engaged? Not looking at my phone, my computer, not looking to tie my shoe, not looking at what Betty's wearing or John's new Jordans or all these things going on in a meeting. No. Am I engaged? Now, Geoff, I have been guilty of this. Okay?
No way.
At my church, we have a ton of meetings every week. And I have a lot of opportunities to be engaged and a lot of opportunities to be disengaged. And it's really easy for me when I think, you know what, this is so boring. I don't need to hear this. Why am I even here? You know what I do? Pull up my computer, start working on other things, have my phone, start checking some texts, texting people, looking at my email. All of these things, different things. And you know what they're symptomatic of? I'm just not engaged.
Yep.
And people see that.
Absolutely.
And when people see that, you know what they think? That person doesn't even want to be here.
They don't value me.
Why am I even going to invite them next time? And man, that's a question I think we need to ask ourselves no matter what context we're in. Meeting with friends, people, we need to be asking that. So am I smiling? Am I engaged? And then last one, am I making eye contact? That's hard. That's really hard. In fact, I did this for probably a period of 3 years. When I'm talking to someone, just evaluate yourself and see where you're looking. Because it's really easy, actually, Geoff, I'm looking at you right now, but it's really easy if we're having a conversation for me to look up at the ceiling or down at the floor, and then I look back at you, then I look down at the floor, then I look back up at the ceiling. It's really easy for us to do that. Eye contact, you know what it tells people? It shouts, you are important to me. When you look someone in the eye, it's giving them value or affirming value that maybe they can't even affirm in and of themselves. It's a simple thing that we can do to speak without speaking, smiling, being engaged, and making eye contact, all serving the purpose of speaking without speaking.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Two things that came to my mind as you're talking about that one. First of all, most of our smartphones today have a little feature that not very many of us use, because in a world that needs to be connected to each other all the time, we have multiple devices at our fingertips, whether it's a laptop, computer, iPad, a phone, whatever. We have a little feature on most of our devices now that help us to focus. And if you don't, there's little apps you can get to help you focus, but it's called Do Not Disturb.
Yep.
Do Not Disturb. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in meetings with people, whether it's front seat leaders or back seat leaders, and they'll have their phone on the table. The phone will be upright so you can see the screen, and multiple times during the conversation, either the phone will go off, and you can just, or the person, and the person will see it, and you can just feel that distraction. Matter of fact, studies show that, and I can't give you an exact quote of a study that shows this, but I've read studies before that say even having your phone on the table during a meeting, face up, keeps you from being fully engaged and fully connected with the person that you're talking to. Yep. And so I would I've started using off and on. Every once in a while I'll forget to do it, but my computer, my iPad, and my phone, which you're going, why does he have all three? Well, my iPad stays at home usually. So my computer and my phone, I literally will put them on Do Not Disturb for most of the day. And it annoys Brad because when he calls me, I don't pick up the phone, and not because I don't want to listen to him.
Nope,
but that's partially true. No, it's mostly because I don't even see the phone call because my phone's on Do Not Disturb, and so is my computer. And some of the people who are listening to this are probably going, I can't do that. Let me just give you a word of encouragement from a type 8 on the Enneagram. Yes, you can. You can. You can do it. And the reason I know you can do it is because there's a whole lot of people who are doing it, who are high-capacity leaders, who are high-capacity back leaders. And I'm not even talking about myself. I'm talking about a whole bunch of other folks who have said, the way for me to be productive, the way for me to be engaged is to shut off the world for certain amounts of time so that I can be engaged.
Yep.
The last one I would say is this, is if you truly value being the best backseat leader you can, be better than the front seat leaders that have all the distractions, that have all the people contacted, all the emails. Be better than that. Be the best backseat leader by being the most engaged with the people who sit in the back seat with you and the people who sit in the front seat.
Yep.
It's going to make you better, and it's going to make your organization better when you are fully engaged in the role that you're supposed to play. I love these 4 principles, Brad, because I feel like they seem, like you said, a little elementary because we should just be thinking about these things. But what often happens is we lack intentionality in these areas.
Yep.
We just lack intentionality. And the difference between intentionality and unintentionality is deciding to. And so the question becomes, are we going to decide to use our words intentionally, to speak with purpose, to speak with caution, to speak with charity, and to speak without speaking, or not, or just not?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important for our listeners to think about is what are you going to do today, not tomorrow, not the next day, but today, to improve how you use your words. And I think that's really, really critical. Last thing I would say is this, and then I got to shut up because we got to get out of here, is this. Not only is it important for us to think about the way in which we communicate, but I would strongly encourage us to start thinking about what we think and how we begin thinking, because that's what's going to produce the conversation. I think we have to actively listen more. I think we have to think about the ways that we are taking in the information so that when we do respond, when we do speak, having a high value of the person you're talking to, having a high value of the conversation, and then responding in kind. If we can do those things, I think we can actually take those intentional steps to move forward with that.
Totally. Yep.
Brad, it's been a great conversation, and
good.
Man, it's been really good. It's 29 minutes into the episode, and so that means we're getting really close. Brad, a couple months ago, about a month ago, we got together and took in some leadership content, and I don't share this isn't an ad. This isn't an ad, but friend. And so we want to encourage our listeners and leaders to think about a shared experience with someone who can be a colleague, a collegial learner with you, or a peer. We find it to be extremely valuable. We're going to talk in later episodes about leading sideways with your colleagues and your coworkers.
That'll be a great episode.
And so I would just strongly encourage you, Brad. We had a great time that day, and some of it was consuming the content. Some of it was just
spending doing life together.
Yeah.
Yep.
So strongly would encourage you to consider that the next time you get a chance to do that with a colleague. Brad, anything else as we wrap up this episode of the Backseat Leadership Podcast?
No. Speak with purpose. Caution, charity, and without speaking. Really important, really simple, good to remember.
That's awesome. Thanks a lot, Brad. And thanks a lot, listeners. If you want, you can connect. We should. Yeah, not if you want. You should connect with us online, thebackseatleader.com, or on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, The Backseat Leader, at Backseat Leader. I don't have anything else to say, Brad.
Peace.
It's been a great episode. See you next time on the Backseat Leadership Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Backseat Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe and leave a review to help other backseat leaders join the conversation. For more information, visit www.backseatleader.com.